Three, two. Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. This has been quite a week. This is week 98 in the Jazzwise magazine. I am one of the co-hosts. My name is Drew.
Hi, my name's Matt. Welcome to the channel.
Today we are bringing to the table our conversation about 98, and this week is
This week is number 98 is Kamasi Washington, and the album is The Epic. Before we get
yes,
started,
yes, it
before
is
we get
epic.
yes, it is.
Before we get started, sorry.
I was just going to ask, how was your week in music? What did you think? Did you listen to anything else? Have you gone back and listened to Sons of Kemet or Loose Tubes?
That's a great question. I have listened to them again. I did some more listening to The Comet is Coming.
Yeah,
And as you mentioned last week, I was really into Shabaka. So
yeah,
I've checked out all of his other stuff. Loose Tubes is, again, we have it on our Google Drive so that we can listen to it from your album. Uh, Originally, it was up there on YouTube, so I haven't gotten a real chance to listen to a lot of it. But The Comet is Coming and Sons of Kemet. I've dug all of their albums.
yeah.
But I got to be honest, I didn't care at all to take it off of Kamasi at
Right,
all.
right, right.
Uh, every one of his albums, I think I've listened to. That's a whole week of music to hit my ears. What
Yeah.
about you? Did you go back and listen to Loose Tubes
Well,
or?
it's funny because Sons of Kemet for me, I gave him a 7.5 in the rating, and I did. I went back just to refamiliarize myself, just so that I could recognize it later. And what I've done is I've created a jazz shuffle list on my phone with all the artists, especially the ones coming up that we're going to talk about, um, just so I could have them in my ear again, so I could train my brain to know who it is. It's a little game I play with myself, and put it on shuffle just to see if I can pick out the artist. And so yeah, I had Sons of Kemet in my ear a little bit last week. I want to remind everyone that we are unconnoisseurs. We are not professional jazz musicians or anything like that. The definition of a connoisseur, got it pulled up right here. Um, it's the love or taste for fine objects or art. Um,
Thanks,
and
Dad. Thanks, Dad.
yeah, thanks, Dan. Or definition number two is expertise in a particular subject, especially an area of art. So that's the definition of connoisseurship. Now, us being unconnoisseurs, we have the love for fine art, and the art that we love is jazz, but we're not an expert at it by any means. We're not expert musicians. Um, I think I'm becoming an expert listener, and the farther in the journey we get, the more I hope to train my brain. If you want the ASUS 713 chord, you're not going to hear it from our mouths. We're gonna laugh about it. One of my favorite YouTubers, Rick Beato, he's got an ear training course. But if that's what you're joining our channel for, is to hear us talk about, oh, Kamasi, did you hear the ASUS 7 minor 9 chord that he played over that? That's not our channel, guys. So I don't want to discourage anyone from joining. But if that's what you're coming to our channel for, we're just here to have a conversation about some music that we love. And being a connoisseur, we're striving for that. Hopefully, we'll get there. And I think after this journey, when we get down, heck, even to the top 50 albums, we're going to be a lot better at explaining things and putting things into perspective. So we're still learning as well. So welcome to our journey. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on a diatribe there. I just
It's all
wanted
right. I put you on
to give
mute so
people
you didn't hear me. I was just shuffling around here anyway, so that was perfect timing.
just give people a chance again to remember why we're doing this. We love this conversation between brothers, and I think it's important for us, to put some of the stuff we talk about out here for everyone to listen to, because I do think we make some valid points, as far as a non-jazz listener, coming into this journey, what to expect, and maybe open their eyes a little bit. I know my eyes have been opened, especially
Man,
especially this week, Drew.
I was gonna say this week did a whole lot of opening eyes
Oh
for music,
boy, oh boy.
and I,
Come on, Kamasi. If I could just reach through and give you a big hug, I would give you a big hug right now.
right, I there's a part of me that does. I want to just squeeze him.
Yeah,
What I'm hoping to do is if I rub his elbow enough or hang out with him enough, I'd get a little bit of that music talent.
I'm telling you,
The
man. Yeah,
man laid it out
yeah,
in
he
every
did.
album. I mean, make no mistake about that. In every album, but this one,
Yeah,
ooh, this was yummy goodness.
yeah. This is yummy goodness, and
Everything else going on in the world. What's new? What's been shaking? I know that we are recording this after we've listened to it, so our lives have changed quite a bit since number 98 played through. But what's new? What's been shaking?
well, it's an interesting week. I failed to mention last week, Delaney, my daughter, she was offered a backup drumming role in the big band here in town, which I was so proud of her for. And she did. She was able to go to the rehearsal and rehearse with the big band jazz. That for me was exciting. I having a daughter who's a musician is incredibly rewarding, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah, because you've got one too.
I do. A
Um,
few years behind.
yeah, a few years behind, and I know that how proud I am, and how yeah, I'm just so
Yeah.
proud of her for her
Uh,
journey in music as well.
this we do always make this personal, so I want to make it that when she left for music school, well, didn't leave for it. She's still at home, and she went to Purdue University School of Music and is working at Sweetwater. I'm going to brag about my niece. I'll drop those on the table. Whoop, whoop. And she's been a drummer for a long time. Has music, this year of music, has that changed the way in which you viewed her being a drummer at the School of Music, or as a musician that you are, trumpet player, and understanding what she was going through, did it impact the way you've looked at her senior year? Because I know that she's just gotten the diploma. So
Well, the interesting part is we've supported our kids, and I'm not going to brag on myself, but I remember
toot
I
toot.
remember my dad making it a point to be at everything that he could, as far as what I was doing. Whether it was I remember being a young kid playing soccer, and I wasn't very good at soccer, and had no interest in the game too much, but he would come to the soccer game and cheer me on. He would come to band performances. I mean, so moving his example into my own life, and really putting that into effect is when I'm lucky enough to have a career where I'm kind of flex hours, and so I can work early in the morning or I can work late in the evening, to be able to have that ability to be at all of my kids' stuff is important for me because of the example my father set for me. And so the yes, it has changed. This journey has changed how I feel about her performing,
Yeah.
and really how I can support her, even not financially, but the other things that I can support her in. Um, she's amazing. She's truly one of a kind. She's a very very good drummer. She's been in all kinds of different kinds of bands, and especially at Purdue, she's kind of forced to play. But they do this really cool thing once a month, once a quarter. I'm sorry, once a semester, where they get all the musicians
Mm.
to join a combo or a band, and they give them certain genres of music to pick from, and they have to pick like three or four different genres. So, I disco may be a genre, rock, hard rock, or '70s rock, or '80s rock. And so I've heard my daughter play all different kinds of genres of music. And, jazz is the one I remember her high school band director, and we'll talk about him in future conversations. But how big of a supporter he was in the jazz world, um, and you know, my goal is to be able to have him on someday onto our show and just kind of talk about jazz and his journey, his own journey of jazz. Um, but man, I am so proud of my kids and my daughter in her musical journey. I've forgotten your question.
I was about to say, do you remember what I asked you about? Did it change it? I mean, again, you came up through music and dad was there to support, mom was there to support, and I see that, but would you have said about her being able to drum for the big band with the pure excitement that you would have a year ago before we started really digging into the music? And to answer, I think that I know that because of what we've learned over these last few months, the love that we both share for that big band.
Yeah.
You start to hear that sound and that noise, and I know it's the Three Rivers Big Band, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And they're at the club room
Mhm.
right there in Crescendo. I'm not in Fort
Uh,
Wayne. I'm just making this up as I
yeah,
go.
no,
So
no,
you
you're
can correct
absolutely
me as
right.
we go.
It's part of the Clyde Theater, which is owned by Sweetwater, and they bring in musical acts. Now, the the Clyde Theater is a bigger venue, but they've got a very much smaller venue on the other side of the facility, and they do live music every night of the week except for Sunday. And that's the exciting. Another exciting part is that we've got live music in Fort Wayne every night of the week. And Monday nights is the blues night, and Delaney, she goes and jams on Blues Jam Mondays, and it's fun just to go watch her play.
Yeah, it is.
Tuesday night is the kind of the smooth rock night, 70s and 80s rock. Wednesday night, well, that's jazz night, buddy. And I've been there just about as many Wednesday nights as I have Monday nights to watch Delaney play.
They've been doing this a while. I mean, if I think about your excitement about it, I've been there to check out Blues Night when Lily and I were back home over the summer. I got to watch Delaney play, and I know that they've been doing these for quite a bit. It's essentially a restaurant. I
Yeah,
mean, I think back that Lily can go in, hang out, and they've got music every single night happening. It is about the stage.
yeah,
And so if you go into Crescendo or Clyde, you're going into that environment, and this music is being put on by them. It's Sweetwater. I mean, let's make no mistake, Sweetwater music. I don't have my coffee mug here right now. I'm drinking out of my Roy Hargrove legacy, but Sweetwater's a big group, and to have somebody like that in Fort Wayne of all places is just such a great opportunity. So yeah, her drumming for the big band then has to be the little bit of icing on the cupcake there.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know that I'm going to be excited to see it. I'm going to send a shout out to Sweetwater and to the Clyde. Y'all need to do a live broadcast so I can watch it from Austin, Texas, please.
That's right.
And I bet Matt can figure out how to set that up for you so that I can
Yeah,
do that. But yeah,
yeah, for sure.
I think it's a huge deal. And I asked this about you a couple of weeks ago. Is it because we're listening to jazz that it seems uh, more readily available? Is it a big deal because we're listening to it, or is jazz really making a comeback? And I think about the live broadcast from even Monk's Jazz here. There are a lot of places broadcasting music. And is it coming back, or is it just because we're into it that we see it and we start to recognize people into it? So,
Well, and I think, again, I think the term I used was hyper focused.
yeah,
We've been hyper focused on jazz now for a couple of weeks, and it's becoming more in our viewpoint, I guess, more in our what we pay attention to.
yeah.
Um, and so the hyper focus is there, and it's going to get even clearer
Yes,
as
it
we start
is.
as we start talking about this week's artist. Before I start, I just want to plug Jazzwise magazine one more time. We are doing the top 100 albums that shook the world from Jazzwise. So if you haven't gotten a copy of your Jazzwise magazine yet, please reach out to Jazzwise and buy your copy of.
Buy your copy of Jazzwise magazine. Technical timeout.
Technical timeout.
You need me to hit stop?
Nope.
Okay, cool. We'll keep going.
Yeah. So yeah,
what are you still doing at home?
So Jazzwise magazine, thank you so much for what you've done. I know that for me especially, you opened my eyes to some great music, and I can't wait to get further in our journey and talk about it.
And that is a big deal because your daughter's playing music, a drummer, and graduated now from School of Music, Purdue, an employee out at Sweetwater in Fort Wayne, which is just a huge deal. Music backgrounds for the both of us, piano, and later for you in trumpet, and now my daughter's into the saxophone, tenor sax player. And I laugh because there are nights that she'll come up to the living room. Hey, can I play your trumpet? I'm like, yeah, I use the 7C mouthpiece, which was the beginner mouthpiece with the horn that I bought. Or she'll come back and say, Dad, you got a flugelhorn? Can I play it? I like that better. Yeah, it's just going to be really flat. Just get over it. Mom's got a clarinet. She said she was going to learn to play, and she loves to play. She's getting really good on that. And I think about last week, you got Shabaka plays the tenor saxophone and the clarinet and the flute. I mean, the flute and now the bamboo flutes that I got sucked into watching as they build them. That was a pretty big deal for me to kind of watch some of that as well. But I think about it with our daughters being into music and our mother kind of driving that, wanting to play the piano, and Dad always being there for your musical events and my sporting events. And they didn't miss a football game because we were in marching. Many a nights they'd do concession stand as long as during halftime they had relief. Yep. So the hours that they put into freezing their butt off watching football games just so that they could see the halftime show.
Well, the way that I always looked at it is I was there to see the band, and a football game broke out in between. So,
right.
You know,
shortly after the Kamasi week, I got to go see some marching bands. Took the family out to DCI here in Round Rock. We got 5 hours of shows that night, so never did have a football game break out. I was kind of glad for that. But that's kind of that's really who we are at the end of it. We did grow up with music and supportive parents watching us behind, and now we're the supportive parents. That means we're old. By the way, I just have to say that. You realize that, don't you?
Well, I'm old. You're never going to catch up to me.
I will never, ever catch up. You've got two graduated from high school, now one from college, and one back into college after high school, and I've got one just hitting high school. Yeah. So, I'm always going to be younger. That feels pretty good, by the way. Although there are days I think my beard has more gray than yours. But,
well, I've only got a week's growth going here. I'm going to let it go for a couple of weeks and see what I can get. So.
Maybe you'll have more gray in it than I do. Let's see what happens in a week. But I know you're excited about Delaney Drummond for that group, and I know that listening to her rocking country stuff and the blues nights, man, that's been so much fun to check them out. So that does impact how we listen to things. And I know that we're much further along, but looking back to that, I got to say that I'm really excited that this all started. For us, this journey about jazz music was a commitment for the 100 albums. And it was about this week when we were listening to it that people around me started to say, hey, you guys ever going to record your conversations about this? I laughed. Yeah. Why would I do that? I mean, we're a bunch of buffoons. We don't know jazz music. We never studied it. Well, I haven't. Why would we ever do that? And then everybody said, hey, just part of the journey. I want to know about it. What am I missing? What don't I know? And the albums like this one coming up. Would you have ever?
Dad calls us knuckleheads. You know, when are you knuckleheads going to record so I can hear your conversation and laugh at you? And I think Grandpa Rice, would have called us goofballs.
Oh yes, he would have.
Yeah, he just said, "You guys are goofballs. I don't know what you're doing."
He wouldn't,
Yeah.
but he would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm
Just
sure he would have.
sit and
Yeah.
listen to us talk about this. He would
Yeah.
have thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yep.
We were goofballs, but that's all right. That's all right. It was a long line of goofballs in the Rice family, like grandfather, like father, like son.
That's right.
And I think that in the weeks to come, we'll bring up more of mom and dad. You'll hear, I'm sure everybody will appreciate. For those who are probably watching who know the Rice family, you know what we're in for. Those parents of ours, we've got the saints and the sinners on the same side. So, uh,
Well, and we talked a little bit. We've got a lot planned for the channel, and
yeah.
I remember you saying one week that you'd love to have Dad come on and teach us how to listen.
Mm.
And I think that's going to be an informative week for me, especially on how to listen. Sometimes it, the further well, sometimes I don't listen enough, and I try and talk, and some of my words they come out either wrong or I should have just listened instead of opened my mouth. And so I think if we can bring that to fruition and have him on and teach us how to listen the right way, it's going to help us in our journey as well. So, like I said, we've got some things planned for the channel that are exciting. Well, we're not going to give away all of our secrets right now, but Courtney Pine.
No, and I think you're right on that because we talked about the book that we read, Joe Cocker's How to Listen to Jazz, and we've gone through some of that by now. We've read that book. It's interesting because playing music as kids or sitting at the piano practicing hours of scales and chords and oh my in public when somebody's speaking when something's going on in business around you, I think that's crucial is when we start to think about how do we listen, what are we listening for, and this just happens to be about a jazz album, and dedicating the time to actually listen with intent. I think that's what Dad would probably say. So it'll be an interesting conversation to have him on when we can record him talking about just listening. And for us, that means he spent a lifetime really paying attention to the things around him. He spent a lifetime listening for things that I've overlooked, obviously. I might be a little bit wiser today if I'd ever understood what he was really doing in the background. But I do have to say this. He was really great at one instrument. He is really great with one instrument. The radio. That's what he would say he could play really well. And I do agree.
Yeah.
For the most part, he can play a mean radio.
Yeah.
Ask him to tune it in, he'll get you the right channel. Ask him to use his phone to listen to music, probably not so much, but that's not a radio, that's your phone. So
I don't know. He's coming around. He really is. I think he's got some music on his phone, and I know he's got music on the computer because I put it there.
Oh, Dad, I love you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Hey, I'll tell you what. Let's get into it.
I
What
was
do you
going to
think?
say, talking about listening to music.
Yeah.
What did you listen to more than this album during the week? Did you check out his other stuff?
Well, I'm going to tell you a story because this album called The Epic that we're going to talk about from 2015. This is a 3-album release. There's 3 full-length albums, and it's actually 2 hours and 54 minutes, 17 songs. And when we discussed the album, I remember specifically being at an office that was about 3 hours away, and had my AirPods in, and we were discussing our music or whatever. And I said, now I can't wait to get in the car so I can put this album on. I had never heard of Kamasi Washington before, and so we finished our conversation. I finished up at the office and got back in the car and put my headphones on, and I was driving, and I was driving, and I was driving, and I thought, man, this is going to end sometime, isn't it? But I made it all the way. I made it all the way home, and I still had the last song of the album to go, 2 hours and 54 minutes, and it was one of the most joyful moments that I've had on our journey so far was to be able to have that in my ear and have that time to dedicate to listen to the album one time completely through.
Yep.
And I know, you know, a new subscriber to our channel or a new listener to jazz may not have 2 hours and 54 minutes to listen to this all the way through. But if I can urge you, just even briefly, spend the time to listen to Kamasi's album, The Epic, the one that we're talking about. Spend the time just to envelop yourself, whether it's 6 songs at a time, or you do the whole thing, or it's one
Yeah.
song at a time, and you're cooking dinner with your AirPods in, or you're on a bike ride with your AirPods in. Invest the time in this one in particular, because I promise you, you're going to find something you like, and you may
Yeah.
learn something about yourself um, while you listen to it.
Yep.
For me, the journey of recognizability, you know, I remember I remember listening to the album, and one of the very first thoughts in my head, and you and I have laughed about this for weeks now, is the Star Trek choir. You know, I was a Star Trek TV show fan. I wasn't a super geek. I watched it occasionally, and but it's Kamasi's choir in the background that's the most recognizable part for me when I'm listening to Kamasi. And all I have to do is hear, and again, we laughed at the Star Trek choir. It's just something in my brain clicked, and there are times when I'm crying because of Kamasi. There are times when I'm laughing because of Kamasi. There are times when um, I have to listen to a song for 4 minutes before the choir comes in, and I'm processing in my brain. Okay, who is this? It doesn't sound like Coltrane. It doesn't sound like somebody else. Somebody else. And then you hear that choir come in, and again, you and I have laughed about the Star Trek choir quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. That's just one the recognizability fact for
Yeah.
me. So getting off of the Epic was kind of hard for me um, this week in particular, just because again, 2 hours and 54 minutes is a lot to invest. And you and I listen to music a little bit differently. You shuffle your music around a little bit, whereas I want to go from song number one to to the
Oh
end.
yeah. Well,
Um,
I would say that I don't differ from that. I like to go from beginning to end because I think the beginning to end is a whole story.
yes.
I've gotten into that. I'll let you finish, but yes.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's all right. All right, so I'm just going to go through the album. The artist Kamasi Washington is the Epic. The year was 2015 that it was released. The record label was from Brainfeeder, and I don't know anything else about Brainfeeder except I'm reading it right now on my phone. And that's maybe one thing that we should look at in the
Yeah.
coming week. Who else is on Brainfeeder label?
Well, I
Uh,
think that's a good thing. Anybody else, drop a comment below.
yeah,
Who is Brain Feeder? Who are they after? If they're like ECM chasing a specific sound, drop a comment. Let us know. Give us some info.
yeah, that's yes.
Help a
Thank you.
brother out.
Help a brother out. so, so what about you, Kamazi? Did you rabbit hole or spiral at all?
When I started the album, I build bikes during the Tuesday we get to talk in the morning ideally, and so I get to build bikes for most of the day. So I get to turn on an album and just kind of listen to it throughout the course of my day as I'm building bikes. As I do that, I have the opportunity to really listen from beginning to end. And the 3 hour album is a little bit tough to get through without interruptions. But I did get to listen all the way through it. And that Tuesday and Wednesday, those first 2 days of listening to it, uh, I ended up going back and like you said, by Wednesday, Thursday, I took an hour here, took 45 minutes there, break it up to a little bit more throughout the week. I did dig into a couple of additional albums during that week of Kamasi's because it's one album. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
It's a lot to
it's three
process.
it's three albums, but is this a unique sound for this album with this unique group of artists, or is this his sound? Is this the story that he's unpacking for us, and is this his phrasing? Is it all unique because of that? And so that's kind of where I wanted to listen to a couple other albums from him that week. I At the beginning I said I did listen back to Burn and Comet is Coming and some others, Loose Tubes as well. But that would have been on shuffle, just like you had talked about. I put it
Mhm.
on and shuffle it and go, yeah, that was this song. I still don't remember who was on the album as far as the tuba player or the trombone player, but that was this album. That was the song. And for Kamasi, man, I tell you, there were more days that I just cried when I turned it on, just a pure joy. You had said it. It's like I just want to reach out and give him a big hug. I
Yeah.
kind of do. It's like a big warm hug in his music.
Yeah.
Uh, I did rabbit hole and do some more research, and I got more and more excited about who the player is, the album and the ideas, and in the weeks to come, I learned a whole lot more about Kamasi and the concept. But the changing of the guards, that particular song, represented and represents still today. It's time for the new noise.
Hmm.
Jazz has seen its bebop, and it's seen its hard bop, and it's seen its post bop. It's seen its big band and swing earlier years, and it's the stride piano that the Monk is known for. We'll talk about him later. But coming from the ragtime, all of this stuff unfolds, and it is time for the new. Shabaka was tomorrow's Warriors and the Jazz Warriors, all pushing for what's today's new sound. And to me, the changing of the guard, that song, ooh, that'll just rip me up because it is time, and it was
You know,
obvious.
I don't mean to interrupt, but let me interrupt for just a minute because you and I have talked about it before. But the way sometimes the music hits you,
Mm.
it brings tears to your eyes, and I'm not afraid to even say Kamasi brings tears to my eyes more than probably a lot of the journey you're going to
Yeah.
see. There's just something about his warmth, and it kind of overwhelms my senses. And even as I talk about it, I can feel my eyes tear up a little bit. And I'm not, you know what? I don't care because
No.
uh, um,
In weeks to come, earthy. I use that term earthy.
yeah,
There's something that just vibrates with us, something that grabs our attention, and that's it. There's something rooted in his tone and his if if the harmonies were words in a story in a book, what would the story be? And that to me is why it was so important from beginning to end. Committing 3 hours to the album is tough, but when it unfolds, the story that he unpacks in that, ooh, I really am getting
yeah.
goosebumps just thinking,
I'm getting
ooh, I'm gonna go
goosebumps.
back and listen to it now.
And the fact that I like the fact that Claire de Lune is on the third album, the third song.
Mm, mm,
That's one of my
mm,
all-time favorite
mm.
melodies, and he weaves it so well. Sorry.
Don't cry. If I was closer, I'd hand you some tissues.
he he
Yeah.
he just weaves it so well, and you know we talked a little bit about it last week. How the artist has to put so much effort into being on point all the time, and I feel like Kamasi is he's just on point all the time. He's just the energy that he's got, even though it's not the same kind of energy as Sons of Kemet. You feel like Kamasi is reaching out with his saxophone and giving you a big hug.
Oh yeah.
Is what I the way that I would describe it. Um,
It is a big warm hug. It's a worldwide hug.
Sorry,
And Claire
I knew it
Loom,
was going to happen eventually. It might as well happen on week three.
it was epic,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
it
Really
was
was.
epic. It was epic. Let me talk a little bit about Kamasi. Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
He was born in 1981 and raised in Los Angeles. He graduated the Academy of Music of Alexander Hamilton High School in Beverly Wood, Los Angeles. He enrolled at UCLA. Um, he began playing with faculty members Kenny Burrell, Gerald Wilson, Billy Higgins. Those names, they right now they don't mean anything to me. I will spend some time this week, kind of going over Kenny Burrell, Gerald
Yeah.
Wilson, and Billy Higgins. I'm going to scroll a little bit further down the list and tell you some of the other musicians that he's played with. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Snoop Dogg, Shaka Khan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's played with some big ones.
Yep.
Some big ones. So as tough as the epic is, I can't wait to even come back in future weeks and listen to some more Kamasi and see if he's as recognizable with some of those musicians as he is doing his own stuff on the epic. Um, and again, I constantly remind myself that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and so I don't have to fire hose all of this music at once, and I can come back um,
Yeah.
to Kamasi kind of at will. And
Well, and I think that's a good point to bring up right now as well. It's not a marathon. I'm sorry, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
yeah,
And we talk about that a lot. You bring that up a lot, but it really is that each week, week after week after week, we get, I won't say bombarded, but each week we're forced to change the album.
yeah,
And if you spend a whole week focusing and getting out of control about the musician and who's begot who, which which artist was his inspiration, who did he inspire, you get down that and think, man, I got to listen to all these others, and you forget that it's one album. What we're looking at is album 98 of the 100 albums that shook the world. Listen to the album and choose for yourself. What do you think? And and I think that there are weeks to come that'll be like, wow, it's just a hard week of music. I ended up 12 miles down the road, and
mhm,
I forgot that I had to come back, and I was just exhausted. And then there are weeks that you go, ooh, I've listened to it once. Can I not do it again? Um,
those weeks are coming up, by the way.
there'll be a couple of them, I'm sure, but I think that that's it. We get to digest one album a week, and I do love. We both do love going into what else did they do? Who did they play with? What were those songs? Um, Kamasi did come up on the West Coast. That West Coast jazz sound. Did he ever get influenced by some of the guys who played with Chet? Did he? Did he? Did he? Did he? Did he? And next thing you know, you're thinking, wow, I'm not even looking at Kamasi anymore. I'm paying attention to Wayne Shorter, or now I'm listening to Snoop Dogg all week long to hear Kamasi in the background,
Right.
whatever it is. But I think that's the joy of this is that it is a weekly digestible album. And if you want to go search up, or for anybody who's already done their homework on this particular artist, give us some feedback. Let us know what you think about Kamasi. Let us know if you've got 3 hours to commit to listening to the album because man, it's worth it. I
It
would tell
is.
you, take a road trip intentionally 4 hours away just to turn the album on. And I say 4 hours away. That gives you a chance to come back 4 hours to listen to it again. It will not disappoint if that's what you wanted to do. Or if you're working on photos and editing like I do, or video, and you have the opportunity just to say, man, I'm going to be stuck at the computer for the next 5 hours. Great. Turn it on for 3 and enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it is that's the marathon or sprint, and don't feel like you have to consume it all right up front and know everything. We've got 100 weeks to learn a little bit about jazz. I've I knew zero. I know point oh one now,
Same.
so I've got a long way to go to understand this. But
Same. Yeah.
I
Did you like the artwork of the album?
I did.
Did you?
I did,
Yeah.
which was funny when you were like, "That sounds like the Star Trek choir in the background." When you look at it, there's a moonscape in the background, and
Yeah.
I'm a fan of black and white. If I
Yeah. Yeah.
could, right over the corner of my shoulder there, some of the black and white photos I've done in the past hanging. I'm a fan of the simplicity of it, but there was something really creative and beautiful about just the artwork in general. That's why when I'm in the record store and I pick up the album, I'm like, woo, I just want to cut it open right then and there just to see what else is big picture inside. You can see the digital, but I kind of want to open a record, the box set records, and just kind of, ooh, it's a warm hug inside of a box. So yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I
I do
do.
too. I do too. And again, I'm a fan of the black and white. It's simplistic in nature, but um, kind of deep in thought
Yeah.
for me, just the way that he's got it set up. So I like the artwork. I really
Yeah.
do. And, you know, as a kid, as a young man, I would subscribe to the CD sales web um, offers a lot, and
Mm.
get 7 CDs for a penny, and then you're in the club, and you got to buy a CD a month or whatever after that. And I couldn't wait to get the CDs and open them up, and that was one of the first things that I did was kind of look at the artwork and have them in my hands. So it's a little different now because I listen to music on my Apple products. You listen to music on your Google products, and we don't get the fact that there's also artwork created, to look at while we're listening to the music. And so I think sometimes we forget about that, or I forget about that. That even if he spent, you know, and I know he spent more than 10 minutes, but even if he spent 10 minutes on the artwork for the album, he spent time, designing that for a reason and putting that on there for a reason. So I just want to give a big shout out to Kamasi, man. You are awesome.
Oh
You're
yeah.
amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
that brings something up we haven't really talked much about. And I touched on this just right before we hit record. You know, when we focus on the musician, we forget about all the music behind him. Who was it? Who had done it? You know, who was his bass player? Who was his drum player? But I think you've touched on the artist that does the album as well. The creative mindset to do that. And I think that Kamasi drives the bus on a lot of this. He has the visions, but there are a lot of people behind him to make that possible. And so, big shout out. I don't know anything about that. I haven't studied the album cover or the artwork inside, but somebody did a bang up job in getting that all done. And so,
Yeah.
that's something huge to think about. And it reminds me of something that I'd read about Kamasi doing that had in mind he'd gone to fashion, he'd gone to the dancers, he'd gone to the backup. He wanted a choir and he wanted a big band behind him, and it was going to be epic. So Kamasi wanted this big elaborate stage performance, and as an end result, the stage was not large enough for everything that he wanted on there. And I think about that, you know, as a creative, you think through life creatively, and as a musician, you think through it creatively. And man, he's got that thought process down from beginning to end. He has really got a beautiful way of putting an album out and the music. But it's not just this album with the sound. He's got so much more music behind him to touch on. And so I think that's something else to be mindful of. He's phenomenal, and this album was phenomenal, but I think there's more of Kamasi to come. So
Oh
that'll
yeah.
be worth digging into. You got any comments on that?
Well, while you were talking, I was just reading through the magazine number 98 again. One of the things that really stood out to me in the little paragraphs that they do, it says what Washington did so effectively was harness the collective energy of his peers and build a
Mm,
substantial sound. That hits me because
yeah.
that's what I got when I listened to the album was a substantial sound. Um, the way that he layers, the way that he layers stuff, it's amazing.
So it's not just one warm hug. It's like five or six warm hugs all at one time
Yeah, it's like a warm hug in a hot tub, drinking a hot toddy or a hot chocolate. Uh,
in a sauna.
in the sun. Yeah, several warm hugs layered on top of each other.
Hug on top of hug. So I got to ask then, all this positive energy and conversation about Kamasi, if he ever had to watch this, what are you going to say we would rate this at? I know one to ten's what we've done, but where you going to drop this album? And actually, let me ask you. I know it shook your world because we've said it, but did it shake your world?
I'll
Is,
tell you. Here's the thing. The and again, we have to remind you guys that we're a little bit farther on in our journey. Okay. Um, the week that we listened to it, I probably wasn't as shaken as I should have been, but now farther along in our journey, and I go back and listen to Kamasi and realize how far we've come and how much I've learned myself. Yes, I'm very shaken by the music because I don't want to say that we didn't do him justice because we both did him justice, and you guys will see that on the website, the Unconnoisseur, when I put the ratings up for this week. Um, but I probably am more shaken now than I was the actual week that we listened to it. Going back and listening to even more and learning even more. And let me I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. He also put out an album, an EP actually, um, and it was called The Harmony of Difference in 2017. And I got to say thank you so much, Drew. Um, Drew and I we did our own kind of top five picks for Christmas time, and it's not that we were struggling, but he introduced a different way of looking at something to me, and the harmony of difference. I don't. Kamasi didn't put it out as a Christmas album, and again, maybe it was just the time of the year that we were doing our top five pick for Christmas albums, and but the harmony of difference. You said listen to the harmony of difference and tell me if you don't hear Christmas in it. It's funny because I will fight anyone. I'll fight you, Kamasi, if you tell me Harmony of Difference isn't a Christmas album. Because I hear it, I hear it, I do, and you smell the smells, and you see the Christmas tree, and the lights are up, and the stockings are hung, and you put on Kamasi with a glass of wine or a hot chocolate in front of the
yeah.
fireplace, and you can hear Christmas.
And
So
that's the Harmony of Difference
that's the
album from
harmony of
him.
difference.
Yep.
Yeah, not the epic, not the
Yep.
epic. And again,
When
that's farther in our journey,
and
but
I wish I could tell you today who it was, but somebody was doing their comment about Christmas albums during the Christmas season, and I thought, no, I can't really see that. I've listened to the album. I wouldn't have thought a Christmas album. I turned it on, and all I could think about was cinnamon and spice and everything nice. It's like gingerbread fairies dancing and little gumdrops on gingerbread houses. And I thought, man, what a it had all the flavors, if you will,
yeah,
of a true Christmas album. I think it's funny because you called later and you're like, I'll fight anybody. It tells me it's not. And it's so true. When you really do listen to it with that in mind, you hear the yummy goodness.
yeah,
It really is.
yeah.
So that yeah, check it out and think about it.
It did shake my world. That's what my ultimate answer to your question is yes. It shook my world. How about you? Were you shaken?
It I would have to say that it shook my world. Listening to Kamasi originally, I don't think probably like you said, not as much. I probably enjoyed it. I know what we both rated it as. I know that it shook me then because of the harmony, because of a big wall of sound that got produced, because of well, it's a tenor sax, so
Yeah,
let's just call it what it is. It's just a beautiful sound, anyways. But it did. It shook me up pretty well, and I understand why it was on the 100 albums that shook the world. I really do want to know, and we'll get into this week after week after week. Why is it 98?
yeah. I was just about to comment
How
on that.
many other top 50 albums could it have really taken off that chart? But I do realize the date it was released, the 2006 had already been done. And so the 2022, this is fresh on everybody's mind. So John and his team over there at Jazzwise Magazine looked at it and it's on here at 98.
Yeah,
Would I have ever found Kamasi if it wasn't for it being on 98? Probably not. It wouldn't have, Harmony of Difference wouldn't have shaken my Christmas. Well,
no,
we'd have come across him, I know, because we're going to dialogue about Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock. So
true.
we'd hear him, but again, without the magazine, I wouldn't come across any of these artists.
Well, let's put it this way. At one one way, I'm glad it was number 98. That way, I get to hear more of Kamasi through our
Yeah,
journey. If he was in the top 10, we'd have to wait 90 weeks to hear Kamasi. And
that's a
so,
good point.
in that respect, I'm glad it's
Yeah,
number 98 because the more I go back and listen, the more
yep,
I focus on Kamasi and the way that he structures stuff. It invigorates my
yep.
brain when I listen to Kamasi and things start to really click and it's just
It is
amazing.
invigorating. It's
Yeah.
mind stimulation.
Yes, for sure.
So so then, with that being said, what'd you rate this album as? Did you give it a 1 to 10?
I did. I
Did you do
did.
it? Did you do it some really good justice?
I did. I did. I like Kamasi a lot, and um, I'm going straight to the top. It's a 10 for
All the
me,
way up.
all the way up. And I know we're only 3 weeks into our
Yeah.
journey, so um, it may change. Well, no,
Yeah.
I don't think it will.
I don't think it will.
No.
And I did as well. We both gave it tens. It shook
Yep.
our world quite that much.
It did.
And we, for most of y'all listening, we have already rated these. We're sharing that spreadsheet so we know where we're at, and we'll have that up to date on the website so you can see as we're going. But we've done this weeks out, so I already know where we've been at with these, and to know that we were both at tens on this album, there's kind of a reason for that. I think the important thing would be, and I ask this now because we're what 58, so we're 40 weeks in front of this album already.
Mhm.
Would you go back and change that? It's still a solid 10. Have you
So,
heard
so
anything? There were other tens coming up, I know, but would anything change your mind on it?
no, no,
Would you
not
go
at all.
higher if you could?
If I could, I would go higher. Absolutely. Because
Yeah,
again, for me, it's the recognizability. When I put the Jazz Shuffle playlist on and he comes on, it may, like I said, it may take a few minutes for that sound to really kick in. But as soon as I hear it, it's Kamasi,
yep,
and it puts me in a good mood
yep. Every time.
every time.
We'll talk more about mood setting and music in times to come because I know that there are some songs, some albums that you need that pick me up. Sons of Kemet, I get a great workout listening to their music and enjoy every detail of the clarinet or the sax. There's loose tubes that'll put you in a unique mood, or if you're in a mood and you want to listen to something. But Kamasi, no matter where you're at, if you're in a great mood or horrible mood, you turn it on and you're just going to be in a great
In a
mood.
better,
You're going to
in a
level things,
in a greater mood.
greater mood. So that being answered, then we've only got one more piece of this discussion, and that is setting things up for next week.
Okay.
Have and again each week, if you guys are following along, if you guys and gals are following along, uh, we are using the Jazzwise magazine. I'll probably drop the link below. Uh, but we try not to look ahead. We're looking at each specific week. I don't want to go into the weeds already about who's next week and oh, so and so's coming up next week. I'll go ahead and leapfrog ahead and then go back one. We're trying to do this in chronological order from 100 down. That way we can build our knowledge base of music. It's difficult when you turn the page. There's already two on a page, and I'll put that some video of that up. So this week coming up is week 97. Yeah, use a
Yeah.
manila folder or something to hide it.
Yeah.
I use a circle of fifths. I got a print out of the circle of fifths of all
Very
things.
good. I like it.
I'm learning my scales, baby.
Yeah.
But I'll flip that open, or you use your manila folder there. Number 97 this week. I'm going to pretend like I haven't already known this or listened to this album, but Cecile McLaurin Salvant,
Yep.
Woman Child, is number 97 of the week. Mac Avenue is the record label. It came out on a CD and an LP. Yeah.
Now,
What could
okay.
what
Well,
could I not say?
Well, can we? Here's the thing. Uh, Vocalists aren't my favorite. Okay, I just want that to be said.
Okay.
Going into next week, I'm going to listen to it obviously with a first time through with a positive ear. But vocal jazz to me isn't my favorite kind of jazz. So I have to be very careful I want to remind everyone that it's our opinion. We're not slighting anyone's work. We're not here to criticize anyone's work. This is our own preference. So what you're hearing is not a criticism, or you know, I, I can't criticize before we talk about it. But vocal jazz to me isn't my favorite kind of jazz. So I'm going to
Setting it up for that.
setting it up for that. Yep, yep, absolutely. But
And
I'm excited. I'm excited because I may have heard Cecile sing before, but I don't think I have. Uh, Okay, I mean we have because we're farther along, but
well, we have, but
before the journey, I
yeah.
mean, I'm not
And
sure.
so I think that that's an interesting way to put that, because for somebody who is somebody who's doing this, and we were blind into this, um, and so somebody who is coming in blind to this, I think that the don't let the artwork or the cover ruin the book or the album.
Yeah,
And you say that all the time. Boy, I was really surprised by.
yeah,
And I'm glad I went into this kind of blindfolded. And so I think there is some advantage of not digging in before you've listened to the album.
yeah,
For some, vocal jazz is the most important thing. And I learned this from the Texas Jazz and Blues Camp, listening to Lily's performance. Each year they start with choir. They would say that the voice is the first instrument you learn. And I think for a lot of people coming up uh, in school, they'll do the recorder. Well, I don't even know if there's still music in schools. It's a shame, but
that is a
you'll learn the recorder and you'll do a choir. Um, and I think that's the important part. So you learn to use your voice. You learn what notes are what and how to sing. And so I think there's something to be said about vocal music. And we listen. I think that's the weird thing. I didn't mean to cut you off or run it, but one of the things that I think about when it comes to vocal jazz is jazz music's jazz music. When you start to put voices into it, it makes you wonder: is this really jazz anymore? And for me, the hard line is I love listening to the instruments because the stories they tell through the melodies,
mhm.
their improvisation or their solos that are coming out, you hear their soul. And so to put lyrics to it, kind of, I won't say ruin it for me, but it kind of almost does. I don't get to hear the
It
music per se.
takes away a little bit
Yep.
because maybe you're focused on the lyrics more than the
Or,
actual.
or in the weeks to come, we we learn it. Well, just yes. I
Yeah,
won't say your name, but
stick
we
with us for
learn.
the journey, and it's going to pay off. I
Yeah,
promise you.
and I think that we started kicking ourselves thinking, maybe vocal jazz isn't a bad thing. But there are the vocalists that come through this the weeks to come that really do shake us up pretty well.
Yep,
And so it'll be anybody's guess. Where do we
yep,
land on Cecile McLaurin Savant, Woman Child? It was released in 2013. So I'll be curious to see what y'all think about this, and more importantly, I'll be curious to see what your rating is
yep, yep.
when next we visit.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Don't forget, you can leave comments in the YouTube video. Please do that, whether you like what we're talking about, whether you like Kamasi, whether you don't like Kamasi. Um, this is a journey that we're on together. So feel free to put comments. Come over to the unconnoisseur.com. We've got a little comment section on each week, and I'll open that up for comments over there. If you don't feel comfortable putting your comments on the YouTube video, come over to the unconnoisseur.com for a comment section. You'll learn a little more about us in our bio section on the unconnoisseur.com. That's just a plug for the unconnoisseur.com. I'm sorry. We're going to
Yeah.
say goodbye, but I'm going to plug it one more time. The unconnoisseur.com.
And if you want to fight Matt over the Christmas album of Harmony of Difference, we'll figure out how to make that work. We
Bring it on. Bring it on.
live boxing matches. And if you're Kamasi and you feel like sending warm hugs, drop us some warm hugs. We appreciate it. Thanks for shaking our world, Kamasi,
Yes, thank you so
and
much.
everybody's world for this album. Thanks again to John Newey and his team over at Jazzwise Magazine. I'll plug that too as well. Jazzwise Magazine, jazzwise.com. Go check out their website for more information on their publications and their monthly magazine subscriptions that you can get. But JazzwiseMagazine.com. Thanks, John, for putting this together. And thank you all for following us on what is our third
Third
opportunity to
week.
talk
Yep.
music. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right. Salute, you
All right.
guys.
Have a great week. See ya.
Matt, have a good one.
You too, buddy.